Tensions in Eastern Europe flared once again this week after NATO fighter jets intercepted 3 Russian MiG-31 aircraft that violated Estonian airspace over the Baltic Sea. The 12-minute incursion, which occurred near Vainloo Island in the Gulf of Finland, has been described as one of the most serious provocations in recent years, raising new fears about Moscow's willingness to test the alliance's resolve. According to Estonia's defense forces, the Russian fighters entered NATO-controlled skies without flight plans, transponders, or communication with air traffic control, all standard procedures for safe military or civilian flights. Italian F-35 jets stationed at Emari Air Base as part of NATO's Baltic air policing mission scrambled swiftly to intercept and escort the intruding aircraft. Tallinn later summoned Russia's chargé d'affaires to formally protest what it called an unprecedentedly brazen violation. Reactions across Europe were swift. Kaja Kallas, the EU's top diplomat and former Estonian Prime Minister, labeled the incursion an extremely dangerous provocation. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen pledged solidarity with Estonia, warning Moscow that Europe will respond to every provocation with determination. She urged EU states to accelerate approval of the bloc's 19th sanctions package against Russia. Estonia's Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna emphasized that Russia has already violated Estonian airspace 4 times this year, but Friday's incident was particularly alarming. This latest breach comes just days after over 20 Russian drones entered Polish airspace, triggering NATO jets to shoot some of them down. That violation, which officials described as the most serious cross-border incident since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, underscored a pattern. Moscow appears to be probing NATO's eastern defenses, gauging its readiness and political unity. Jakub Godzimirski, a Russian security policy expert, suggested the Estonian incursion could be a test by Russia to see how NATO responds. While he noted the possibility of coincidence, he emphasized that in the broader context, including the Polish drone incident, these actions appear deliberate and calculated. For NATO, such provocations reinforce the importance of its Baltic air policing missions, which have been active for years to counter routine Russian incursions. Yet the unusually long 12-minute breach over Estonia signals a new level of audacity. Estonia is even considering invoking Article 4 of the NATO Treaty, which calls for consultations among allies whenever a member's security is threatened. The European Council President, Antonio Costa, announced that EU leaders will meet in Copenhagen on October 1st to coordinate a collective response. Western intelligence chiefs warn that Moscow has no intention of scaling back its aggression. Britain's MI6 chief, Richard Moore, said there is absolutely no evidence that Vladimir Putin seeks peace, describing him as determined to impose his will by force. The incursion, therefore, is more than a single breach of airspace. It is a symbol of a wider confrontation, one where Russia challenges NATO's resolve not just militarily, but politically, by testing the alliances to remain unified under pressure. The future may hold more frequent and riskier provocations. Each incursion forces NATO into a delicate balance, responding firmly enough to deter Moscow, but avoiding escalation into direct conflict. At the same time, the EU is accelerating sanctions to increase economic costs on Russia, signaling that Moscow's actions in the skies could carry heavy consequences on the ground. For Estonia and its Baltic neighbors, the message is clear. Vigilance is no longer optional. Russia's willingness to probe NATO territory represents not only a military challenge, but also a psychological one. An attempt to instill uncertainty, raise pressure, and test Western unity. As the standoff deepens, the skies over the Baltic Sea, may remain one of the most volatile front lines of Europe's security landscape.